Hey guys, how was Monday?
Hey, thank you very much, Scott. Steve, what's happening over there in your neck of the woods?
Not a lot, just staying indoors. Kind of hot outside.
Oh, don't even talk to me about hot. Okay, so whatever neck of the woods you're in, the market action was all the same today. So welcome everybody to another edition of the Office Hours. Today is the 17th of August. I'm your host, Jamie Hodge, and with me is Steve Gomez, as always, on Mondays. Before we get rolling here, just want to take a minute to make sure everyone in attendance is aware of the fact that all the information that we share with you guys in this webinar or any of the other webinars that we have coming at you every week is for educational purposes only. If you do need investment advice, please seek out someone like a registered investment advisor or a Series 7 licensed stockbroker. In other words, somebody that is licensed to legally dispense investment advice to you. So everything we share with you guys, educational purposes only. Always like to take a little bit of time at the top of the hour here, especially with the influx of new people, to let everyone know about the community that we fostered around the technology that is Trade Ideas. All kind of starts off up here in the left-hand corner with the trading room, which we had a few issues with this morning, but we've been working diligently to get those sign-in issues fixed. So hopefully tomorrow, nobody should be running into problems. Little service migration, all in all, making a better experience, but a few kinks to iron out. The next best thing to the price of our trading room, which is $0.00, is our moderator, Barry Anderson, who's in there each and every day, opens up the room 30 minutes before the open, and likes to showcase his trading style techniques, as well as the way that he uses the TI technology, and also likes to answer questions. So if you're new, it's a great place to hang out and learn. But if you're an advanced trader, it's a good place for you too, because there are traders from all walks of life in there, everybody from the beginner to the seasoned veteran. And of course, on Mondays, you get myself and Steve. Steve's going to take the steering wheel down here on Tuesdays with the trade of the week. That trade of the week's off to a good start, Steve. I don't know if you're going to talk a little bit about it today or save it all up for tomorrow. Wednesdays, we like to switch it up just a little bit. We bring in our CEO and founder, Mr. Dan Merkin, along with our Chief Technical Officer, Brad Williams. Always interesting with those two, typically giving you a peek of new features that might be coming down the developmental pipeline. Andy's going to take the helm for Thursdays and round out the 5 p.m. Eastern webinar slots. I ride shotgun with him. Always a good time in the trading studio. And then, of course, we have our ever popular daily support session. Used to do it just on Fridays, but since we've made some changes, we do it every day now. We allocate an hour between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern each and every day for anything TI related. Always have a different trainer trader in there answering questions for you in real time and sharing a screen for you guys as well. On the next slide here, you'll see how you can get to that daily support session. trade-ideas.com/live. It's always that same address. So once you get it, just bookmark it. And each and every day, you can just pop on over there, get your questions answered in real time. It's always a good time over there. And of course, always like to show everybody how our user base has been expanding and continues to expand. Of course, 2016, the year that we introduced the AI, saw some phenomenal growth there. And of course, we've had a lot of people piling into the markets as of late due to, well, let's just call them macro circumstances out there in the world, kind of forcing a lot of people into the markets that have never been there. I don't know if forcing is the right word, but let's just say options are limited right now. So a lot of people that were doing other things are now getting their feet wet in the market. And we're seeing a lot of new accounts because of that as well. With the AI producing what it's been doing, that's only adding fuel to the fire. And we expect this growth to continue. For how long? Unknown. In addition to our user base expanding, our Brokerage Plus module, which, man, I forget how long it's been since we introduced Brokerage Plus. It's been a while, but that is the interface that allows you to actually trade through our software, assuming you have an Interactive Brokers account. You can see orange The orange bars here are the demo orders that are being filled and pushed through the system, whereas the blue ones are live orders. And every month, the blue and the orange just keep getting bigger and bigger. That tells us that people are receptive. They like Brokerage Plus. They like the more intuitive trading interface. As I said earlier, the only broker-dealer where it's currently available is IBKR. Ironically enough, they're one of the only broker-dealers out there still charging a commission. But we do have versions being ported of Brokerage Plus to E-Trade and Ameritrade. Last I checked, E-Trade's in the lead. That one looks like it might come out first. Still don't have an exact ETA, but we're in the testing phases, so it's getting closer and closer. So before too long, expect to have a B plus connection to one of the $0 broker dealers, which we all know the benefits of zero commission. All right, I do believe that takes us to today's agenda, and we're going to be talking about Holly and her activities today. A lot of good trades that Holly spit out today, a lot of good ad opportunities, and we'll be talking about those, along with a couple of moderate versus conservative spreads that we could have taken advantage of. And then we're going to close it out with things that have been performing and continue to perform in the form of the opening range breaks with the high volume. Some really interesting plays that we'll look at there as well. In the meantime, I guess, Steve, it's time to pass it on over to you. Take a look at the big tracking ETFs. I think we got close to all-time high today on the SPY, but not quite, leaving us the rest of the week to try to get there.
Yep.
So if you're ready, I shall kick it over to you, and you have the helm, sir.
So you, in the midst of all that, you teased them on the trade of the week, which was VSLR. And as I was looking at this, it's a nice looking chart, but I got to qualify. I can't get too excited about it because one of the things I said, ideally, any breakout above this level should hold for the day and a strong close. Well, I didn't really get excited about the strong close that gave a lot of it back, a jam on the open, and then just kind of sideways all day. And then before you know it, it's just kind of sitting back right at or under where the trigger line was. So I would have loved to have seen it close on highs. We'll put it that way. The other thing that's interesting, and I noticed it this weekend because of my scan, you got Vivint Solar as the trade of the week, and then you got the Sun Run. And I'm like, okay, these things have been absolutely mirroring each other. For some reason, they both took off on the 7th of July. They both broke out today, and I don't know, just absolutely interesting. And maybe if somebody knows the reason, maybe they're same parent companies, I don't know. But it's uncanny how much they're mirroring each other on the chart. So let's get to the S&P 500, the nuts and bolts of it all. In the micro last few days, that's a pretty sweet looking setup. You don't want to be short something like that if it was a stock chart you were looking at. It's just a slow grind higher. I mean, notable, all right? Notable is this decline, this absolute just stagnant August volume here. It's really low, but as Brian Shannon likes to say, price is what pays, not the volume. But sideways grind, just a little doji today. Very, very minute movements, but they all seem to be minute movements in the same direction. And he laughed at me one day for saying that coming back to test these highs in the S&P 500 is just going to be a foregone conclusion. And we just know how algorithms trade. When they're in the neighborhood, they're going to want to knock on the door and see what's there. And with the NASDAQ just continuing to move higher, it's just another reason to think there's no reason why the S&P 500 cannot move higher, and has a date with this orange line, which is all-time highs. So no short case to be made here. Almost in clean air. The S&P 500 will be in clean air if it can get above and close above that orange line. So speaking above that orange line, that's the respective difference tail of the two cities here. The S&P, I'm sorry, the NASDAQ cleared its respective high way back in June and has just continued to grind higher, even decent volume over there. But let's think about it. It's the Amazons and the Apples and the Netflix. They're continuing to boost this technology COVID economy higher. There's just no other way to look at it. So the NASDAQ will continue to drive us higher. And speaking of all-time highs, we actually had a new closing high. So I'm sure you'll hear about that all over the place today. The NASDAQ Q's all-time high. It really makes you feel bad for the people who got really scared down here and sold the minute the magazines said bear market, probably put a couple of bears on the Newsweek magazines and weekly news magazines. That's usually a very contrarian indicator. I don't know if that was the case this time, but it's usually a good one. So the people that panic and sell down here, oops, excuse me, I just dropped something. My poor AirPods. It's always a difficult task to jump back in and buy the stuff back higher. And if you haven't done that, I'm sure there's somebody out there that's just getting redder and more steam coming out their ears by the day as they watch this freight train just leave the station. And again, a lot of this has to do with the COVID economy, which is a weird way to look at it, but the wins and the sales are on the online commerce and the online service companies. IWM is the that's not a bad looking chart right there. It's finally trying to play a catch-up pony. Let's look at something here. This is rather interesting. I haven't really looked at the IWM a whole much lately because it's always been just a real disappointer. So the first thing I see is a beautiful breakout from that wedge. And again, this is the Russell 2000. So this is a measure of small cap stocks. And I have a great segue here in a second when I finish this. But the second point of interest is, I'll just put it right there, is that that pullback right into the moving average. Let's go ahead and delete this. My favorite moving average. It looks like they're fanning out here like a strong trending market wants to do. 50 just crossed the 200 there. Big significant cross in the Russell 2000. And that most important 10-period moving average is acting hopefully as a bounce trampoline to try and move the Russell 2000 higher. Now, if that's the case, we've been waiting for a long time for what happens a lot in the market rotation into small caps, and it's usually some of the later innings of a very strong market when the junk stocks, as you call them, start rallying. The ones that have been sitting under $5 for a long time all of a sudden have bursts of volume and are popping up on scanners everywhere. That can be a fun period to trade, and I hope we're coming into one of those because here's the big segue. You guys have heard me talk a lot about gold and silver the last couple of weeks. I've just been long and strong them, lightened up a little bit, thankfully, and then bought a lot of it back. And a nice, fortunate thing happened on the weekend. Warren Buffett came out and said he's literally purchased almost $500 million worth of GOLD, Barrick Gold, and you can see what it did to Barrick Gold today. Big volume spike. Once people know what Warren's doing, they all want to kind of tag along. So it was nice to be positioned for that news. So coming into today was really nice. But what I really want to say is there's a couple names that are on the small cap side. Okay, I think you guys know how much I like this type of a look here. Look, the moving averages are fanned out. This is TGB. It's a copper, silver, and gold miner. Once great company. I used to trade it, and I couldn't believe it was under $1 when I pulled it up. I'm long TGB. And if the Russell 2000 wants to continue, and if gold and silver wants to be as strong as they were today, then bring it on. I'm ready. There was another one I bought. What was it? GPS? I think. No, not GPS. What is it? Hang on a second. Let me bring this up. GPL, I think it is. There we go. Yeah, this is another small silver company, Great Panther Silver. Great, under $1, small caps. Look at this chart. You can't go wrong there. So I bought some of that today. So I'm extremely overweighted in silver and some Newmont and gold. I think that could be an interesting week just to say why, you know, the dollar, look at that dollar. You talk about the inverse of what we like on a bullish chart. That's our dollar ETF, UUP. It's about as ugly as it gets. If this thing breaks down to new lows, things like gold and silver will probably just have even more tailwinds to move higher. So that's what's kind of going on in my mind over here, Jamie, in the bigger picture. And that's what I'm literally trading right now. That's it.
Excellent stuff, Steve. And yeah, I mean, you know, the overnight future sessions that we're seeing on silver are unprecedented, right?
Volatile.
Just all over the place. I think we came in today up 5%. Would SLV close today up 4.25%, somewhere in that neighborhood. So we're seeing these huge moves, huge gaps, huge overnight trading sessions in the futures, which, you know, only adds fuel to the fire. So definitely going to be interesting moving forward. Okay, let me grab the steering wheel from you, and we'll get on with the show here. I think you should see my screen again.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. All right, so we're going to talk about Holly. Some very interesting plays coming through Holly today with a total of 11 signals that we had from the 3 AI modules. First, just take a little peek at my compare count windows that I like to consult after the first 15 minutes. What do we look like today? Well, we were slightly bearish, 52% bearish versus 48%, excuse me, bullish. Got those mixed around there. 52% bullish versus 48% bearish. And this is like deja vu all over again, because with the SPY up here, just thinking about going and pecking at these highs, which is the blue line up here. Squeeze it back a little bit, you can see that's just my price alert. But when we start getting up here and we start getting these tight little ranges, you know, maybe it'll happen during a trading session. Maybe they'll just gap it up tomorrow or gap it up Wednesday. We'll see. But these types of readings like to show up when we're very close to all-time highs or close to breaking out of a certain part of the chart. In this case, it just happens to be all-time highs. And then we can see, yeah, most of it, you know, the gain was in the gap, and then we just kind of inchwormed along up and down in the range for the day. Not huge moves in the intraday session. So no big surprise to see compare counts being of minimal help today. But more importantly, the market held, right? Didn't give it back, didn't close that gap up. So let's talk about Holly. 11 signals today, and typically we usually have a nice little mix. We talk about trying to extract some of this spread between moderate risk and conservative. We got a couple of good examples in the form of UBX and LMPX today. And, you know, I was trying to figure out what to call these guys, not necessarily trade arounds. Of course, you could kind of lump them into that category. I'm just going to start referring to these as add-ons, okay? Holly plays that were spit out, and then after the initial entry, they present very good add-on opportunities. As far as trade arounds, I've typically been throwing those into the basket of a play that Holly got stopped out on, and then we see how the stock reacts around that stop area and figure out if we'd like to interact with it. And there were just really no good examples of those types of trades today. So moving right along here, let's talk about the moderate versus conservative spread opportunities that we had in the form of UBX and LMPX first here. So let's just take a peek at LMPX first. We got a nice little mix here, long and a short. So here we have the LMPX. I'll tell you what, let me just tighten this up into a 15-minute chart. Be a little easier on the eyes here. All right, so we got the initial signal from Holly right here at 965, right in this candle right here. And then we get a nice little pop up, but basically something that we see from time to time, thing just riding the entry line for most of the day. And Holly decides to profit save out for flat, okay? So basically exiting right here about 45 minutes later. Well, anytime we see this happening, you know, anytime we see Holly exiting a position, entering a position, I always pull it up. Doesn't matter if it's an entry or an exit. In this case, it would have been a profit save right here. What do we see the stock doing? Nothing but ebbing and flowing right here around the entry line. Sometimes they take a while to get going, but not getting anywhere close to our stop area, just barely dipping below that entry line there. So big difference between $0 on a profit save and a max of $240.87, assuming you held to the close. Now, just a quick word here about the values that you're seeing here. I should have said this earlier, but all the values that you're seeing in my P&L columns are based around a risk of $100 per trade. That way the system sizes me in accordingly as to the share amount, so that if that stop does occur, I lose roughly about $100 there. So all we had to do is make the decision to stay in the trade. And, you know, patience is a virtue, all these little adages about patience. This one really did pay off late in the day, because look at this nice little run that MPX had at the end of the day. You know, this candle here closed at, what do we have, 10:05. And then in the last 15 minutes, we made a run all the way up to 1176. So this trade ended up working nicely. We just had to be a little patient, up and down on the position throughout the day. But boy, the buyers really stepped in, bought that stock up in the last 15 minutes of the day. You don't typically see that very often, but hey, happened today in LMPX. So just being patient, keeping our original stop. we could have made some nice money on that stock LMPX as opposed to Holly's flat. Now UBX, pretty much the same song and dance, but with the exception of a nice controlled seller in this stock today. And boy, you know, we're looking at 15-minute candles again, and just look at the action for most of the day. Now, Holly kicked this one out pretty early in the day, about 6 minutes, almost 7 minutes into the open. So we could just go back if we wanted to see a little bit more detail. Look at yield 5-minute time frame here. Well, we're just pretty much seeing the same thing. So I'm going to pop it back to 15 minutes here. In any case, not a bad entry. And we had pretty much the same action on this one as we did in LMPX, but it decided to give it up a little earlier than waiting till the last 15 minutes of the close here. All right, the stop on this one, pretty tight, but it held nicely, 525. Entry price here of 489. So a reasonable stop for a lower price stock. We just had this sideways action for most of the day up until, there we go. All right, now we can see a little bit better. Let me just expand this out. Well, got some truncation issues here. Okay, so not a bad entry here, but check it out. This would have been a great opportunity to add to the position. We get short at 489. Finally, the seller comes back in, starts tapping at fresh lows down here at 456. So right about here would have been a great opportunity to add to this position, as it exhibits a nice range breakdown. So we got the signal early on Holly, ebbing and flowing around the entry line, not getting anywhere close to the stop area, which is good. Gives us plenty of time to wait and see what happens. And then when we finally do come down here and break, well, we could have easily added to the position here and enjoyed the rest of this move here. So this would have been a great add-on opportunity for the UBX short. Kicking out a very nice percentage profit by the end of the day. Things to take note of, check out that volume level right there. Finished the day at 43.18. Let's back it up to LMPX. That guy finishing the day at 38.38. Now, of course, these are both coming from NEO, and that's what NEO is infamous for. It's the more aggressive of the trio, and it's always looking for the high relative volume stocks because, you know, volume is not the holy grail, but it can be the great equalizer. And when we see things like UBX show up, you know, probably you've heard me refer to these as a very controlled selling event. You know, clearly, you know, big gap down, and clearly the seller was obvious in the first opening 15 minutes here. And throughout the rest of the day, buyers and sellers become relatively equal until we reach this crucial point here and the stock releases further. So we could have easily added here, used this prior bar as a exit signal in case we were wrong on the add-on, but check out how it's behaving according to the fast line, the 10 period, staying well below it all day. So some really good risk conservative profit versus moderate profit spread there. And then even an opportunity to add to the UBX trade here once we see a secondary pattern emerge there. All right, just looking at the questions panel here. Looks like you're keeping up with them, Steve. So if I need to expound on anything, just let me know there. In the meantime, pull up my cheat sheet here. So those were the two moderate versus conservative spreads with the added benefit of having an add-on or a opportunity to add to the trade in UBX. Now we're going to talk about some additional Holly trades that perform nicely with additional add-on opportunities that look very similar to what we just saw in UBX here, except they were to the upside. First one here is, we're going to save REDU for last. Let's take a peek at ENV first. All right. So here we are looking at the 15s. Probably need to drill down just a little bit more because the closer these come to the open, that's when I'm more inclined to consult the 5-minute tea leaves. All right. So Holly comes along and gives us the original buy signal right here at 14.79. We can see the blue arrow coinciding with that. And once again, acting very similar to what we saw in some of the other Holly plays, not just taking off immediately, but buyers and sellers become equal here. We had a buyer show his hand right here, boom, running up in the first 15 minutes, little pullback, Notice how the top of this range is going to coincide perfectly with that wick there. Sometimes, but not all the times, these opening wide range bars with these wicks can act as a telegraph play saying, hey, went up here before, buyers couldn't keep control, we might revisit that area. And lo and behold, once we got up here shortly after the Holly signal, we did. We had a nice area of opportunity here where buyers and sellers become equal. All the while, noticing that even on the 5-minute chart, this 10 period still seems to be in control here. So if we're in the position with Holly right now, 1479 area, perfectly coinciding with this secondary pattern unfolding here. As we get the range break here, this would have been a beautiful time to add shares to that trade here. And then we go from 1479 all the way up to 1586 for a very nice percentage gain. So a very nice profit opportunity here, risk down here, reward up here. That's what we want to see there, okay? So, you know, I just realized, I said earlier I was going to talk about ENV, but I just realized I've been talking about CMBM, but that's okay because this is all that matters right here. We'll visit ENV here in just a moment. But all in all, to be quite frank with you guys, I love it when these trades do this instead of just going immediately because it gives us plenty of time to size up and figure out if we want to press that position. If we did flip back to the 15-minute, you will also see that well above that 10 period there, just hugging it a little faster, a little closer on the 5-minute. Steve, it reminds me also on the daily, when we're levitated well above that 10 period and we switch it to the faster 5, we get that fit like a glove as well, and it seems to hold up on the intraday as well. All right, now let's take a look at ENV. Get rid of those lines. And ENV was a short play. I like the mix today. I like the mix of short and longs. So here we are looking at the 15-minute action here. Once again, going to back it out just to the 5-minute here because this guy came along not quite as early as the others, but we can see right here, initial Holly signal coming out right here, all right, at the 80.79 level. And then we do get a nice little down move here. Check out the telegraphing wick as I was talking about earlier, but to the upside. Seller is quite obvious here in the first 15 and 30 minutes. We wick down here. We take a little regress up to here where buyers and sellers become equal. And then sure enough, what do? We come down here and test that wick, and we have another auxiliary pattern playing out in the form of the range break right here. This would have been a great time to add to that short position there. As we cruise through that was right about the 80.05, we'll just call it the $80 level there. A great opportunity to add to that position as we see this perfect little opening range break play out just shortly after the original Holly signal there. So once again, maximum reward area down here. But then if you didn't take those cookies as they were passing the plate around, whoosh, we got a big recovery here, gave back a little at the close, but pay attention to what we see happening down here, even on the 5-minute. As soon as we get a couple of closes above that 5-minute, or excuse me, that 10 period moving average, that's when the reversal took into account. So, 5, 10, 15 minutes, even if you didn't bottom ticket to make a decision there, hey, I'm getting some strong closes above that 10 period, might be time to take the cookies, or maybe even throw a little reversal trade in here, in which case we could have tried that right here, used down here with a very minimal stop area, and double dipped on this one a little bit. So not a bad trade there in the ENV with a nice add opportunity to it as well. All right, CMBM, ENV, and REDU. And there was a lot I liked about this trade here. First off, let's just take a look at Holly's take on it. All right, so here we are looking at the 5-minute candlesticks. Once again, we got Holly calling the play right here at the price of $4.92, as we can see over here, coinciding with what we see right here. So Holly recommends the buy at $4.92. We got to stop way down here, so never really had to worry about that stop being triggered. Now this one, a little bit more of the same, but all the while happening well above the entry line. So we're in the money, and guess what? Buyers and sellers once again become equal. We got this nice little consolidation area before finally, right around the 11 o'clock Central Standard Time, we get this nice clean little range break too. So we could have easily added to this position. That just ignited the biggest move of the day as we cruised up to right about $6.30 some odd cents. So original price from Holly, $4.92, a great ad opportunity right here around the 5:30, and followed by the run about a buck later, up to 6:30 and change, okay? So these were just all over the place today, and all we had to do was watch what they did after Holly made the entries, and we had some really good add-on opportunities here, really giving you the opportunity to leverage those trades that were working today, and all the while, same song, same dance, hugging that 10-period moving average like a glove there. So that's pretty much it for the add-ons of REDU, CMBM, and ENV. And we've got a little bleed over here. And what I mean by that is when we start talking about the other opening range breaks that I'm going to showcase here, look what we had show up before Holly, REDU right here. Notice that we had the original Holly signal right here. And of course, when I click on my alert, since Holly's going to hog up all the screen metrics here, when we do click on it, what you should be seeing is a blue arrow right here. I've got an orange arrow there, but like I said, Holly dominates the chart once the AI triggers it. If we click from an alert window, the orange, or excuse me, the blue line doesn't move. But right here, through this window right here, which, by the way, I will drop the links to these windows before we're done, because they just keep on spitting out really nice performers, okay, with high volume. And there we go. Let me, I just lost it there. Let me get back to REDU. So this is where REDU first came through my new T high ticker right here. Once again, the buyer showed his hand in the first 5, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Once again, we have that telegraphing wick right there. And then we get a nice little 20 minutes of sideways action before this little range break transpires, okay? So I had heads up here, nice clean range break, nice low risk. This would have been the risk area right here, this little orange, right between these two little orange lines. So a great entry here, only 1, 2, 3, 4, 20 minutes later to be triggered by Holly, okay? So not only do we have one entry opportunity here before Holly, watching the new TI ticker, then we get Holly flagged it here, and then we have yet a third opportunity to press this position later on once the opening range break was punched through here. So REDU, it was like a triple star trade today from my viewpoint, coming through one alert window, then being triggered by Holly, and then setting up once again right around the 11 o'clock Central Standard Time, right about lunchtime Eastern. So a great little lunchtime opportunity from REDU with two great signals right before it. Now, we're going to talk about another great one that came through this window today, Elway. All right, more of the same. This one taking about 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 or 30 minutes of trading here. And look at these nice tight little ranges here. Volume was lacking here, so I didn't get a signal here, all right? But later on in the day, as we took another little leg up, buyers and sellers yet once again become equal. This is where the signal for Elway came through from the new T high. Would have liked to have seen it here. Volume wasn't there. Volume finally kicks in here. We get a nice clean range break. And fortunately, that's when the majority of the move occurred. Let's see, from 450-ish and change, reward area going all the way up to about 560 there. So from a percentage basis, a great move. And let's see, Lifeway Foods, most of the time these are going to be a biotech stock, but not today. Lifeway Foods coming into play, showing or finishing with a relative volume of 21.75. Forgot to check let's go back and look at REDU one more time. I know we looked at it one more when we were talking about Holly, but man, check out the relative volume that REDU finished with. Education. You know what? That is a topic that's been coming up a lot here lately. There was another stock that came through not too long ago, which was home education or education also in China. Reminds me of the old days around early 2000s when we'd see a stock called Coco coming through, which was Corinthian College, which used to be a high flyer, which is not even in existence anymore. So it seems like the education stocks are making a comeback some 15, 16 years later. I guess, hey, everything in cycles. So a really good opportunity in Elway, and depending on how aggressive you are, even presenting yet another opportunity to press that position right about 10:55 Central Standard Time as well. Now we have yet another one, FIBO, or excuse me, FBIO, FIBIO as I like to call it. Just a really nice consolidation area between 331 and 321. So nothing more than a dime in this little tight range here before we finally get the big kicker here, right through that level right there. How did this little guy finish today? Just a paltry 6.38. You know, it's funny that, you know, compared to the other ones, relative volume of 6 seems kind of low, but that's still some pretty banging volume today. And then what do we have here? We had a risk somewhere in the neighborhood of not very much at all. Okay, just a few, not even, man, 331 down to 327. I mean, let's just round it off to a nickel. Throws a little bit of a wiggle here, but doesn't get us out. And then we go from 331 up to 354. Not a huge dollar amount, but on a percentage basis, that's a pretty good clip there, okay? And once again, we can sum it up pretty easily just by looking at our risk area versus our reward area. Doesn't matter the dollar amount of the stock. This is what it's all about. How many R's can we get out of 1 R of risk? And we could probably fit that risk area at least 5-6 times into the reward area there. All right, Kenneth, I see your question there. The question is, between all three Hollies, how many trades does it execute per day? And there is no magic number. Today we had 11. Sometimes it can be more, sometimes it can be less, just depending on the nature of the day. Today was a pretty moderate trade count. A lot of that's going to be dependent on market conditions. Not only that, but it's also going to be dependent upon how many strategies make the cut for today's session. And we can see here, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 strategies made the cut today. But a good thing to point out here is that just because a strategy makes the cut does not necessarily mean it's going to issue a trade. All of these strategies that you see down here have very specific and lengthy filter sets, and everything has to line up perfectly for that strategy to fire off a signal. So we had these down here, the hammer, yesterday hammer, today strength, count to Monet, and sunrise mover. Although they made the cut, they did not produce any trades today. And then we can see the active strategies up here. Looks like all the active strategies had about 2 trades each, with the exception of breakout long, only producing 1 and actually underperforming today. All the rest doing pretty well. Now let's see, FBIO, I think, is the last one we talked about. We already talked about REDU and Elway, and then we have TFFP making the cut as well. Once again, because of the nice tight little range that it established in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about the first 35 minutes of the open here. We got our lows put in, we got our highs put in, and then we got a nice little clean break right here with some low risk using the bottom of that candle, roughly speaking, as a stop loss. So what do we have here? We got an entry price right about the 11 and 91 cent area. And then this thing just, the little clip up, little hover around the entry level, slightly in the money before this thing finally gets legs. Once again, what do we have here? Even on the 5-minute charts here, just that 10 period controlling the action, sticking to it nice and strong. For the first run, we had up to 13.49 from, so we'll just round it up a little bit and call it 12 bucks. So a nice move before buyers and sellers take a break here, have a little bit of a sloppier consolidation, and then boom, as soon as this line gets reclaimed again, buyer comes back out and pushes it from 13.49 up another 50 cents into the close today for some really nice reward up here. Risk down here, reward up here, up to the top line here, if I can make my pointer work. So a big, fat, juicy reward area, nice moderate risk area here, and this thing closing up here at 14 bucks. What are we looking like on the daily over here? Do we have any resistance to run into? As we can see, this thing's just been on fire. Nice little gap up on Friday, and then just continuing the rampage today. Oh, big shocker here. You know, as I was saying earlier, most of the time when we see these stocks here lately, they're going to be in the pharmaceutical industry, and that's still the theme. And I don't expect that to slow down anytime soon. It seems like when you scan the headlines, whether it's the weekend or the close, you see some stock that's just taken a giant rip, that's producing a supposed COVID-19 vaccine. Just seems to be the theme that's here, and it's going to stay around indefinitely, much to my chagrin. But that is the market that we're in. And on the bright side, it is fueling some great upside opportunity and downside as well, just not near as prevalent as the upside plays today. All right, so all in all, we had 4 nice opening range breaks. We had some nice Holly plays to talk about today, and we're just about at the end of the session here. So if anybody has any questions they'd like to throw out there before I bring Scott in, go ahead and let us have them. And I'll give everybody just a couple of minutes here to see if there's any questions that we can address for you guys before I kick it over to Scott. All right, I see the question there. Can you use 2 different screens at the same time? The AI and the graphs. Well, you can have all of this information. You can have the AI and the graphs all on the same screen. That's really going to be dependent upon how much screen space you have to allocate to trade ideas. You know, what you're seeing right here is just part of my layout. You're seeing one screen. You're not seeing my other 2 screens that I have. So I kind of consider all 3 of my screens as my working desktop. And whatever windows I arrange within trade ideas and save, they're all going to pop up at the exact same spot that I left them. So assuming you have the screen space for it, you can pack as many windows in here as you see fit, as long as you don't, hit the window limit, which last time I checked, I think it's 20 charts, and I forget what the window total is, Steve, but I want to say it's more than you could ever hope to use. So Dean, I hope that answers your question thoroughly. All right, very good. All right, guys, nice little crowd in here, and I see the crowd is still there. So before I kick it over to Scott, I'm going to go ahead and drop the cloud links in here because I almost forgot to do that for these windows that are producing these nice tight range breaks. So first, I'll give you the long version, and I should qualify that. Nice tight range breaks with massive volume. All right, there we have the first one. And there will come a time when the downside one lights up. There's just a lot more upside activity right now. So I posted both of those cloud links into the chat area. So all you have to do is grab those cloud links and load them up, and you can try out those windows. All right, Scott, I don't see any other questions coming through. So if you're ready to walk us on out here and let everybody know how they can save some money on a new sub or potentially an upgrade, I guess it's that time.
All right, Jamie, thank you. Yeah, a couple items on the way out. Everyone should grab that free ebook on earnings season. Teaches you how to use earnings season to your advantage. It includes some strategies that you can import using cloud links directly into your layout. We've also got a podcast, and we've been releasing some nice interviews this year. Go ahead and tune in to those. Just search for Trade Ideas Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts, and add us as a subscription. Check out the previous episodes. The code SUMMERTIME will save you 15% off your first month or year of trade ideas. The code is also good to use on upgrades. So if you decide you want to upgrade from standard to premium, get those extra features, just go ahead and take advantage of that before that code runs out. Jamie can be found on Twitter at QuantBot. You can find Steve Gomez at Today Trader. Our Facebook page is Trade Ideas Pro. And if you have any questions at all, just shoot them to info@trade-ideas.com. That goes into our help desk software and gets you the support that you need. The recording of this will be up later on tonight or tomorrow. You get an email reminder tomorrow with a link to the playlist, and you can check it out again if you missed anything. All right, Jamie and Steve, thanks. Have a great one. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Steve. Thanks, everybody, for popping in, and happy trading. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.